Welcome back to The Real Story. My next guest is the top law officer of the state of Connecticut, and he's here to comment on a number of issues at a time when the top court in the country has made some history making decisions. I want to welcome State Attorney General William Tong. William, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's dive right in here. I first want to talk about Roe v. Wade. The highest court in the land, as you know, has decided to throw out 30 years of legal precedent here. Abortion is still legal in Connecticut, but we are now one federal law away from a total abortion ban. You are the chief law officer of the state. So my question is, if and when that day comes where you have to defend this here in Connecticut, can you do anything to stop it? What are the legal tools in your toolbox?
Yes, we'll do everything we can to stop any further encroachments on Connecticut, on reproductive health care and freedom here in Connecticut, and the right to choose and the right to an abortion. It is firmly ensconced here in the state of Connecticut, and I have no doubt that we'll be very successful against any challenge. But if Congress, in the next session of Congress, if we have new control of Congress and the Republicans in Congress think that they can outlaw abortion on a national basis, I will be the first to sue.
And as a result of Roe getting overturned and as a result of new state law, Connecticut now seems poised to receive an influx of out-of-state patients and practitioners. If those people face charges in another state, are we talking essentially about offering them sanctuary here in Connecticut?
Well, we're not going to extradite them, and we're not going to charge them with crimes here in Connecticut for actions that are not crimes in Connecticut. And if anyone from Texas or Missouri or Arkansas or any other state tries to come into Connecticut to go after people in Connecticut, we will stop them. You know, at the end of the day, let's put the law and the politics and all the debate to the side. At the end of the day, this is a public safety issue. And as soon as the Supreme Court made its decision in Dobbs and overturned Roe, and by the way, this isn't about overturning a precedent that stood for 30 years, Matt. This is a precedent that has stood for 49 years, as long as I've been alive. I was born, roughly a month or so right before Roe was decided. So for my entire life and the entire lives of many people across Connecticut, including my wife, my sisters, my daughters, we've only lived in a world in which abortion has been safe, legal, and accessible here in Connecticut. That has all changed. Yep. The Supreme Court has split this country in two, and many people, women and patients, their lives and their safety is at risk.
Okay. Speaking of overturning legal precedent here, let's switch topics. In the wake of more high-profile mass shootings, the Supreme Court also recently decided to strike down a New York handgun licensing law. And while Connecticut's laws are a little bit different here, you issued a statement saying that the state should expect to be the target of more lawsuits from the gun lobby. What do you think they're going to go after here in Connecticut, and how are you prepared to defend it?
Yeah, the court's decision in Bruin was really so much worse than a punch in the gut. It's hard for me to find the words to describe how hard it is for Connecticut to take, especially after Uvalde and now Highland Park, and of course, almost 10 years ago at Sandy Hook. So we expect a raft of challenges to our state's laws. Let me say again, Connecticut's gun laws, which are among the strongest in the nation. We are one of the safest states in the nation in terms of gun violence. Our laws are eminently constitutional and defensible, and I have no doubt that we will prevail in court.
All right. Attorney General Tong, I want to ask you now about a case that I know is personal to you. The Sackler family and their company, Purdue Pharma, based right here in Connecticut, not long ago settling a lawsuit for $6 billion for their role in contributing to a nationwide opioid epidemic when they mismarketed and lied about the addictive nature of oxycodone. I think the interesting, thing about this settlement is it still leaves the door open for criminal charges. And I know you've asked Connecticut's new chief state's attorney to consider that. Have you heard anything from their office?
Those conversations are continuing. At the end of the day, there was originally a settlement proposed at roughly $4.3 billion, but because Connecticut led a group of 9 states and the District of Columbia, and we held out. We pushed that settlement to $6 billion, which will provide much needed resources for treatment, prevention, and addiction science. We left open the possibility that criminal charges could be levied against wrongdoers by state or federal authorities. That's always been the case. And if prosecutors believe that they can build a case, I expect they will do so.
All right. I know that typically you are in the business of reclaiming money for the betterment of the taxpayers, but recently it did go the other way. The state paid $9 million to settle a lawsuit for its role in the torture and abuse of William Shahadi, a patient at Whiting Forensics in Middletown. It was the largest sum of money, as you know, to ever be paid to a person by a state. What message do you want to send to the taxpayers of Connecticut following what I'm sure was a very difficult case?
The message I would send is that this was a horrific case where somebody in the state's custody, somebody who was sick in a mental health institution, was horribly abused. And unfortunately, it resulted in litigation and criminal charges and prosecutions. And we have to do everything we can to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And hopefully it won't. And we will do everything we can here in the Attorney General's office to make sure that it doesn't.
All right, William, I know that you recently joined a coalition of attorneys general to call on the FDA to eliminate toxic metals from baby food. So I know you're closely paying attention to the issues that matter to families, but my question is on sort of a similar topic here. Is there any appetite to hold formula makers accountable for this nationwide baby formula shortage that has left so many babies hungry, kept parents up at night? Many people have said that these supply chain issues were foreseeable and avoidable. So can you do anything?
Yeah, not just supply chain issues, but this is the direct result, I think, of consolidation and the fact that there are really only 3 major baby formula manufacturers in this country. And if one of them has a problem, that impacts the entire supply chain, and again, puts people and their families and their children at risk, at physical risk, because people need the formula to feed their children to live. And at the end of the day, this is the same issue we're finding with baby food. And there aren't enough manufacturers of baby food, and when they don't do the right thing to take toxic chemicals and metals out of that baby food, that impacts the life and safety of children across Connecticut and across America.
Right. Okay. Aquarian Water. Let's talk about that, which is owned by Eversource. They recently filed for a 27% rate increase over the next 3 years. Gas is going up. Groceries are going up. Everything's more expensive. Inflation at an all-time high. Is it reasonable for a company who has already come under some scrutiny for mismanagement for them to ask people to pay nearly 30% more? I mean, what is your office doing to intervene here?
Not reasonable and unconscionable. And that's why my special unit in the Office of the Attorney General that focuses every single day on trying to push energy prices down and to protect consumers in battles with Eversource and our state's utilities, and work every day to protect ratepayers. They're fighting tooth and nail against this proposal.
William, your office also recently announced a $3 million settlement for utility customers of a third-party electric supplier called Public Power. These are customers who typically shop around for the best rate, but couldn't because Public Power wasn't letting customers know about rate increases in advance. So my question is, what will this settlement money be used for, and are there other companies out there in sort of what we know as this wild west of third-party electric suppliers that are doing the same thing right now?
Yeah, you called it the Wild West. That's why I've long been a critic of the quote-unquote competitive electric supply market, because what we've seen, unfortunately, is a lot of misconduct, a lot of bad actors, people telling people, or companies telling people that they're going to save money when they don't, and enticing them with teaser rates that then turn into rates that end up being higher sometimes than standard service offered by your local utility like Eversource or United Illuminating. And so this was a big deal. We shut down an operation here in Connecticut. We got a $3 million fine from them, yes, but we also shut them down. They were running 4 different brands, and we've chased them out of Connecticut. And it's the same group I mentioned before that takes on Eversource and stands up to Eversource, this same group is the same group of lawyers that shut down this electric supplier. And we're going to continue to go after bad actors in this market because, unfortunately, there's no shortage of them.
All right, I want to ask you about Wyndham Hospital now, which is operated by Hartford Healthcare. They recently filed a petition to permanently close their birthing center. The State Office of Health Strategy recently issued an initial decision denying that request. You hailed it as a victory, but Hartford Healthcare said, and I quote, "After years of declining births and recruitment challenges, it has become impossible to provide a safe, quality childbirth experience." So why are we pushing to keep a wing at a hospital open when the hospital operator is saying that it won't be safe to do that?
Well, we've talked about public safety this whole conversation because it's not safe to have a maternity and birthing center at Wyndham Hospital. It's not safe to require moms, families, patients to travel a half hour or longer to Norwich or Manchester or Hartford from Wyndham. And part of being a community hospital and enjoying all the tax benefits, by the way, of being a nonprofit community hospital is that you agree to a certain number of obligations to provide an emergency room, for example. But part of that covenant has to be maternity and birthing services and bringing children into this world. I think if you asked 10 out of 10 people in Connecticut, what should a community hospital do? They would say have an emergency room and bring kids into the world.
Okay. AG Tong, we've talked a lot about some legal issues here. I want to ask you just a couple of political questions. I'm sure you know the name Mark Kohler. Not a lot of people in Connecticut do, however. He was tapped to be the interim Secretary of the State during what is going to be a very busy election season and at a time when cybersecurity and election integrity is more important than ever before. So who is Mark Kohler and why do you think he's the best man for the job?
Mark Kohler, for a very long time, was what I called the big brain in the Office of the Attorney General, one of the most important lawyers in their state, and really importantly here, one of the most important election lawyers in our state. So he handled all the big, difficult election law questions, constitutional law questions, because he was head of a unit in my office called the Special Litigation Section. And so Mark, I can't think of anybody more qualified than Mark Kohler to be Secretary of the State, particularly at a time when elections are challenged broadly. Thankfully, here in Connecticut, we haven't seen the same trouble that they've had in Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin and elsewhere. But we can't be complacent. We can't expect that it won't happen here. And when there's so much doubt being sowed across the country and so many attacks on our electoral system and our democracy broadly, Mark Kohler is exactly the right choice to be Secretary of the State, and I commend the governor for making that appointment. Attorney
General William Tong, State of Connecticut. We got to leave it there. We covered a lot of ground. I appreciate you coming on.
A lot of ground.
Good to talk to you.
Thanks, Matt. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on The Real Story. Remember, you can catch all of our interviews in full on our website at fox61.com or just download our free Fox 61 News app. We'll see you back here next Sunday at 10 a.m. Have a great day.